Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Telepathic terror. What to do if I'm being terrorized telepathically /x/? There's this group of a few guys who won't leave me alone for 6 months now. This is devastating. First time was 2 years ago, right before I hit 33. They messed with me posing as the neighbors who were watching me, discussing my every move and action. Only by moving I was able to confirm that they are in fact in my head, as the influence never stopped, but varied in angle and signal strength depending on location and movement. I was convinced I was going crazy and was on the way to admit myself into an asylum when it stopped. Then a couple years later they came back, and this time they are communicating with me directly, usually humiliating and manipulating. I was going to believe they are Secret Service, but I don't know why the Secret Service would waste their time on a Mr. Nobody expatriate, going as far as bringing native speaker squad this time. Oh, and they hate when I talk about them or post online, but this cycle I was on the verge of ending things and they didn't leave, so I guess it doesn't really matter. I know this doesn't make much sense so far, but I tried to write a detailed explanation a couple of times and it gets long and boring. So I'll try to explain it by answering questions, because I maybe didn't see the whole picture by not asking the right ones. I mentioned that I was being controlled my whole life. I didn't realize this until recent events, and it devastated me and robbed me of any will and desire for the future. It was not stated by the operators, as I call them, but was discovered by me looking back on my life and seeing patterns and some extraordinary events that happened to me. Weirdest one would be an episode when I stole some money from my grandma and went to a farmhouse at age 13. My mom was dirt poor, and my grandparents as well, except they weren't. They had money hidden all around their house but lived like beggars, skimping on everything, occasionally bringing rotten fruit they bought on discount as gifts of joy. So I learned, to my own disgust, that the only way to feel what my peers were experiencing freely, like being able to buy a Coke, was to steal from my grandparents. That night, I did so, and went to their empty farmhouse to spend the night with a bag of potato chips and candy. I was afraid someone might come into the house at night, like our relatives who owned houses next to that one. So I locked the door from the inside by the hook, the lock, and as well, left the key inside the lock, turned 90 degrees clockwise, so it would be impossible to open from the other side even having the key. Then I went to sleep. I threw some old rags above the blanket so I won't freeze and tried to shut my eyes but couldn't sleep. The bed was placed in such a way that you could see the sky, so I watched the stars. Then from above the window frame I have seen this weird object. It was a glowing ball, descending from the sky, slowly at first. So this object shines in the sky, and I remember myself thinking, why is the moon moving so fast? Then as it grows and moves faster, I realize that it is not the moon. I have heard of ball lightnings in this area before, so I immediately jump to this conclusion and start praying, let it not come here, let it not come here, and trying to remember how to ground myself against the fucking lightning. I don't recall any ways, so I decided to stay put, especially since my cousin told me that ball lightnings can easily pass through walls or even appear out of nowhere, because she saw one appearing under her table. I still don't know if it was a bullshit story or somehow a connected event. Anyway, this glowing thing is descending and it looks like this shit is just going to land in my backyard. It gets brighter and brighter inside the house. I realize I'm fucked and hide myself under the rags. I spend some time like this, maybe 10 minutes or so. My eyes are tightly shut and under the rags, so I can't see shit, and don't want to. Then I hear voices and footsteps on the front door. There are male voices. They appear to struggle with the door. I hear them whispering between themselves and trying, but they can't open it. One of them says, "Oh, well, look at this." Then some clunking and a ding from the falling key I left in the keyhole. Then the door opens, despite the hook I put on from the inside, and some men step in, maybe 3 or 4. I think I recognized 1 or 2 of them as my uncle and his son, but I can never be sure, as the uncle has died before the recent events and his son will never admit to anything. At this point, I forgot about the glowing object completely and in full panic mode because I believe I am screwed because of stolen money. I hear the men entering the room and discussing if I am asleep, but one of them says I definitely am not. Fuck you, I am asleep, I thought. Then I feel rags being pulled off me. Someone unknown is trying to speak to me in a soft voice, convincing me to talk to them. I don't give a shit. I decided to pretend asleep all the way. They say, "We have to talk, otherwise we'll come back when you are 30 and your life is going to be very hard." Well, shucks. How could you know that, asshole? I thought then. Well, now I'm 35 and turns out he knew precisely. They try to talk to me more, but I won't budge. After a while, they give up, seeing that I'm not going to cooperate, and leave me be. I guess something else happened at this point because a few months later, my body excreted an implant out of itself. Anyway, I woke up the next morning and my uncle's son came in to check on me. He's around 25, maybe 28 at that time. His visit was unexpected and uninvited, and again, I get so scared that he'll figure out why I went there, or already knows, that I forget about last night completely. He asks me if I slept well, and I say yes. He makes small talk and leaves. I grab my shit and leave as well, not to remember this story for years. But after maybe half a year, I go to the bathroom and notice something poking out of me. There is a small black grain, like a sand, poking out of the skin right under my rib cage on the left side, with an irritation around it. I poke it out and it's a tiny speck of hard material, maybe silicone, square-shaped, about 0.5 millimeter length on the side. It was black and slightly shiny. I had nowhere to put it and was more concerned with the hole it left than the speck, so I just washed it down the drain. It left a scar that I have to this day, which looks kind of like a third nipple. I wonder if that's how people get it, but it isn't one because I never had it before.
Know that you are not alone. Also, don't give them anything.
I figured that out, actually. I did my research on the voices in the head thing, and I found out there is one surprising detail that matched some, and only some, of the victims. Operators were using words in a foreign language which I wasn't familiar with or sometimes heard, but didn't understand the meaning. They were also forming sentences correctly in Italian, a feat still unreachable to myself. To clarify, I am Russian living in Italy since the spring of 2013. Events described here happened in rural Siberia.
Take your meds or go to a psychiatrist if you haven't already.
I am going to. Unfortunately, I am currently unable to bring myself to even start getting back to work because of the treatment I get from the operators. I will not be able to succeed in anything that goes contrary to their plan, even though they are not letting me fail completely as well, just to keep a bare minimum to pay rent and feed myself. But for the last 6 months, I was not able to work because of constant humiliation and provocation, belittling of my abilities. To put it lightly, disruptions during my attempts to work. It starts to really seem like all I can count on is turning myself to medics and collecting disability checks. You will understand later, perhaps as we progress with the story, but it turns out this collective possesses a large variety of tools in their disposal. I am in no power to go against them. Once they terrified me by taking direct control of my wife, like a puppet, making her say and do things out of context for her, or anybody, but in context for me. It was not something I will be able to ever forget. You see, they yank me back.
Just find them and kill.
I can't even find them to speak, though I know they are located nearby me because of the nature of our communication. Oh boy, I have so much to explain. You see, usually I hear them as a voice, kind of in a distance. But at first 2 or 3 months of the last stage, sometimes I heard them like from 2 directions simultaneously, one of them louder than the other. I believe they are actually speaking out loud whatever they are transmitting to me, and if they are close enough, I am able to hear their real voice, not just transmission into my inner ear or whatever. Thanks to this duplication, I was able to map at least 4 possible locations in my apartment complex, which are being used by this group, even though they change them often. I also heard sounds of machinery being moved and activated in the flats all around my apartments. Coincidentally, I felt pressure on my chest and forehead, which disappeared if I shifted my position and came back seconds later, as if somebody was adjusted the antennae. Due to this, at some point, I was completely convinced that the nature of the events is technogenic, but I believe now that there is a mix between tech and occult, or at least psionic, because they can control dreams as well. Oh, and how they do it. I was going through 5 stages of grief 2 times a week up until recently. Thankfully, the power of transmission lowered to about 0.2 in the recent weeks, and they didn't actively troll me all the time anymore, just fucking with me when I believed something they said, reminding me that I should not believe anything. That's what they do. Now they are at around 0.1, so I hope this thread actually helps. OPSEC is very important to them, and this particular breach may mean my release from their control, or at least from this cycle. But I am not going to believe this is over anymore. They are never leaving me alone. So let's get back to the coincidences in my life that led me to the conclusion I was being guided, or yanked as I see it. After a first cycle of psycho-terror, April-May 2019, and at the start of the second, November 2020 and ongoing, I guessed it is Italo-Russian Joint Service, some kind of training op on nobodies. There were rumors in the 90s that Russian secret services did a lot of telepathic invasions in people's heads, manipulating them to do crazy shit, to no obvious profit but just to train personnel. Those poor souls were allegedly subjugated to decades of terror, people shouting inside their head, barking, belittling them. Any way you see it, mind surveillance is a complete deprivation of privacy, and it makes people go crazy, all right. So I figured, maybe it's some Stasi tier shit. I was a political dissident in my past, but nothing serious, just your regular keyboard warrior, but still passionate enough to leave Russia because of my viewpoints. But as I looked back on my life and logged the events, weird shit happened around me so much I don't know how I didn't notice it before. Back in 2008, I took a 1,000-kilometer hitchhike to West Siberia. At one point, I had to cross the railroad going over the top of the hill. There were some bushes and the climb was pretty steep, so I didn't really check for coming trains, expecting to hear them. Well, turns out, the fuckers are almost silent as they come near. I was almost ready to step on the rails as I felt something yanking me back, and the soil and gravel going out from under my feet. I fell on all fours, and in that instant the train passed an inch from my head at 60 kilometers per second at least. At the same time, I heard a dude screaming, "Get in the ass." Russian way of saying "go fuck yourself" from behind my back. But behind me were only grass fields, and that was actually a second instance of me almost dying during that trip, but surely the most spectacular one.
They are a bunch of interdimensionals. I have been dealing with them for about half a year. They often hang out around the datura. Have you had any surgeries? The anesthesia often contains scopolamine. Ayahuasca might set them straight.
Funny you mentioned that, but I had a very strange episode last year which involved medical treatment. I was at my friend's chilling out. We were drinking. For a large guy like me, it is usually nothing but light buzz, but this time I felt heavy nausea. I went to the balcony to get some fresh air. Well, almost went. I blacked out at the door. My friend was busy, so he didn't see the event. I woke up as he was unhooking me from a door handle. The metal protrusion entered my upper arm, a good 4 or 5 centimeters deep. And it wasn't a sharp one, too. It pressed the skin inside and ruptured the muscle. I was able to see my beat and yellow fat, but there was lust a drop or two of blood. I went to the hospital and stitched immediately. Maybe I was treated with something extra there. But as I saw that event, I was being put out of weed addiction, as hard as I was pressured into getting it. Unfortunately, everything is a tool to them. Worst example of that is my wife's previous relationships, which she had to experience to value me better. And while I look like an angel to her in contrast to that guy, I still weep for her. How do I know she was messed with? How about she was coincidentally pushed against me 5 or 6 times at random places by faithful meetings, and a handful more she missed, like the apartment where I barely wasn't living anymore, but she went with a friend to party. And of course, she embodies everything I wanted from a wife in nature and bed, not to mention I was a virgin before her. Oh, and datura is abundant both where I live and where I am from. Interesting. I do not know if they are extra-dimensionals, but they surely possess abilities beyond normal humans. They do not or barely sleep. Telepathy. Body control. They often hint at things with senses, like pain in the teeth or tingling in the lips when I shouldn't talk, squeezing, touching on feet or arms to hint on action, pain in soles to stop, and so on. They can flick one on and off, not unlike infamous African magic, so it retracts inside and you can't get aroused and you feel the impotent. They can hijack auditory channels, sometimes making you hear what they want in people's speech, like behind your back in the bus, to provoke you to make a fool of yourself by confronting unsuspecting people. They can hijack visual channel. Once I opened a fridge and saw an empty space on a shelf where the milk bottle goes, grabbed a new one from the table, turned around, and the shelf was completely full. Subliminal control. Making people around you do stuff that doesn't make much sense or lays into context to you. Like my wife showing me the videos of Yangtze River out of the blue, saying, "Dirty river can't flow into the clean ocean," when operators were hinting on me joining them. Emotional control. When I get too mad, I feel pressure applied on my temples and lobe and my anger just goes away. Electrical control. Breaking and influencing appliances. They fuck with my Wi-Fi when they want me to do something other than Netflix. Yeah, most of this sounds like bullshit and crazy shit, but it is designed to. Together with demonstrating power, it makes the story ridiculous to anyone you try to share it to.
Ever since I've had a lucid dream for the first time, I know that anything can be perceived as real by our brain. Things inside dreams just make sense, even if they don't. And they don't feel real. At a time, whatever you're experiencing is just plain real to your brain. So whenever someone says stuff like OP, I feel sympathy, because I assume they just take wrong stuff for reality, while it's just A. Our brains seeking patterns. B. Our brains are trying to make sense of incomplete puzzles. C. Senses playing tricks on us. D. All of the above at the same time. And you've got yourself a mental disorder. Like, yeah, feeling pressure on head and chest that disappears and reappears when the operators adjust their signal? That's anxiety. It gives you real physical symptoms with seemingly no reason. Sensations when you should do something? It's just you. You know better, but it's hard to control yourself sometimes, so your brain gives you signals. Voices? Some people don't actually hear their own voice when they think. Shocking to those who do, and vice versa. Don't you think there is a scale on which hearing a voice happens? The higher you go, the more real it seems, the more different voices can be heard, etc. Everything OP is describing is just your brain on overdrive. It makes sense to suggest seeing a specialist about it, but it's not like it is the ultimate solution, a switch off for all this. You gotta reach even further into yourself and the world around, realize some things. Be an observer. Look for possible answers, but never assume anything for a fact. Never ever. You could be right. You could be wrong. Maybe we'll never know. Find a way that works for you. Don't let this stuff make you crazy. We're all stupid in that our brains are weird and far from perfect. A hormonal disbalance can completely destroy you mentally, but at the same time, we're strong enough to survive this. Don't pick one road. Keep looking until the day you die and never give up.
I had similar delusion. After a while without psychedelics and by starting with cannabis, we, me and them, me and I, don't know, made a deal. For fun, I called that timestamp of my past Deal with the Devil. The devil is because the opposite party is currently unknown or out of human understanding. Now, after a long time, I've been able to relax a lot more, being more human.
You fool. You didn't make any deal. Cannabis takes the progress you've made in raising your spiritual progress in the game and sets it on fire, resets you to base level with the rest of the hive. If you want your own agency and power, you are going to need to use shrooms and other psychedelics without smoking weed. Weed basically allows them to read you super easily, and you are no longer a threat. This is bad for you overall. They have overstepped their boundaries on this timeline. They deserve nothing but hell from the higher dimensions. There's really no point in sticking around much longer. Your freedoms will be stripped slowly.
In this process, I have created quite a few personalities for different situations and people. I think it makes me harder to read. I've played stupid for quite a time, and it has kept me low-key. And hero is a wuss way out. That's what I learned from them. Sticking around is actually quite fun if you get that mindset. Don't an hero anon. What if you mess up and get disfigured and end up in an asylum forever? Be awesome, so you can live to tell on them or stick it to their loser dreams. Be the card crusher, not the loser. You are not alone. They are still doing this to people as we type in this very thread.
All manipulation. To make you believe they are the ones being manipulated is a tool. It is a roller coaster of making you feel powerless and then in control again to stabilize you. Really, you just get so fucking tired you don't care anymore.
They wanted me to believe that I was broadcasting my thoughts like a hive queen, but in reality it is they who were the telepathic hive mind. I know.
Ahaha, this one made me break my head for quite a while. That's what they do, yes. Indeed, this is a two-way channel. They want you to learn to clear your mind so you'll be able to communicate effortlessly, I guess. They are able to resist your projection of thought, but it takes effort. What you need to do is to practice by concentrating on one at a time, projecting or just listening. They will try to evade and switch to another, then keep trying. It's not the end to it, but it is a phase. What is going on with you currently? Do you hear them now? Is it constant or on and off? One period or multiple? What duration? Please describe your experience in detail so I can compare.
They are not as loud as during 2017. They can still directly broadcast, but they only choose to do that in emergencies only. Otherwise, it's the subtle suggestions, which I can still choose to ignore or follow. I still have intrusive thoughts from time to time, but I know now that any thought that makes me uncomfortable is not me. So then the impact is lessened. And the minute the impact is diminished to zero, the thoughts die. So no, I don't hear them anymore. But then again, I was an exceptional case, because the bad actors had been brainwashing me since I was a little girl. I remember a person from my childhood saying to me, "You have to cry, because if you cry, the world will get better." And other kids who were playing with me did a role play where I was to be a controlled person. I think they knew, and I'm glad that they told on themselves like that, so that I can remember now in my adulthood. It's weird though, because every time I believed in the occult and demons, my mind was free. Whereas when I was a strong and smart atheist hero against Christianity, I was the actual controlled and brainwashed individual who believed that her thoughts were being broadcast into the world, so she should watch her thoughts and her words. Very new world order like Lovecraftian creepy, though I kept dismissing it as regular insanity.
I believe that a large checkpoint for them is to teach us not to trust anyone. Like to be completely trusting even to the closest people around us, but also don't take anything anyone says for a fact, especially if we can't check if it is true. I was fucked with because of that and had problems all my life because I trusted people only to be disappointed. I believe many events in my life, and probably yours, were artificially constructed to inflict a certain trauma as a tool to change our personalities in a certain way. Maybe, and I know that is wishful thinking, that is a way of teaching us to protect ourselves against deception. But I find it too traumatizing. It's like spilling a baby with water, but for them it looks like an acceptable risk, I guess. So it started in 2017 for you? At what age? How long? Or is it a single episode still ongoing?
No, you are reading me wrong. It happened in 2017 because they found out that I was the one who was being brainwashed from a young age. The cry to make the world better is the sufferer, the one who has experienced every form of human hardship imaginable, so that he will have the answers. The answers to the burning question: how can the high-class rich people make life better for the low-class shit people that the world has deemed permanent failures? The sufferer who will fix the world's problems? Yes, the New World Order really does things like this.
Oh, it's funny because I myself was always thinking of injustices of this world and how it can be fixed, LOL. Maybe it's just what we losers share, even if engineered to be such. I thought it would be a good idea to found a society based on nepotism and benevolent cooperation. Like a club of masons, but not limited by wealth or profession, but rather by ability to cooperate and willingness to bond together, to pull together to mutual benefit. Like, make it so profitable to be good, so people would want to pretend to be good just to get in. And at this point, pretending is just as good as being good and becomes your nature. But I never went through with it because there were no people in my life who were able to see the benefit of it, and I am not so good at doing shit on my own without support.
Red and blue will sneak into your home and put up cameras and do all sorts of weird shit. They're called dirty because they are unclean, not of God. Devil worshippers, pretty much.
Dude, there are no cameras. Believe me, because I checked everywhere like a madman, disassembling appliances, sockets, lampshades, and mirrors all over the house. It's your own eyes, ears, feelings, and thoughts used to collect information. You can check by doing something under the blanket, like writing on paper so there's no tech, and you can verify it. Looks like you're on stage 1, which comes with that government surveillance bullshit.
This one really powerful psychic heard my thoughts, not said out loud, under a blanket and in the next room even. He was a good man, though. I hope he's doing well. He was one of the nice good psychics.
Don't be fooled, though. They play good cop, bad cop all the time. Some switch roles as they please, some staying more or less constant. Plus, they will say whatever you're expecting, projecting them to say. So if you assume they are evil, they will act so. And this is fucked up, guys. Theme of my ordeal was to learn not to trust anyone. So I believe it may vary, and experience may be tailored to some extent, although I see many similarities across the thread. Oh, there are 2 weird things. Tell me if those happened. At the start of every prolonged episode of voices appearing, I had skin on both of my palms blistered and peeled off, like from a sunburn, for no apparent reason. I suspect it may be connected with hand lines change. I have no proof because I never photocopied my palms, but I'm pretty sure some of the lines have changed. Also, there was a weird sound of humming in the apartment above, like a big heavy cylinder rotating or something. They would spin up and hum for 10, 20 seconds, on and off, during periods of heavy terror in the middle of the night, like 2, 3 a.m. Those would spin up maybe 10, 20 times a night. My wife noticed that as well and found it weird, even though she had no idea what was happening to me, so I know that wasn't an illusion.
No, the person I'm talking about was the one psychic who wasn't clowning around with monkey business. He even told them about how they were going to get a baby out of me, but then some loud music played in my head to interrupt him snitching on them. Long story short, they extracted them against my will. It's like those babies were very important to them. Very 1984.
I think they do indeed use selective breeding, in a subtle way when they can. My grandmother met my grandfather by chance, and my mother as well met my father under weird coincidences. My father once told me he was abducted by aliens, but I thought he was joking, and now he's long dead. I also met my wife under weird circumstances, but I believe I was heavily yanked so I won't have kids with her, and after years of marriage we still don't have any. A gypsy told me I will be married twice, so I guess it's planned for me to have kids with someone else instead.
It is not about being psychic. It is about having a brain that can understand the fractal nature of choice interactions and their deterministic outcomes, like algorithms. This means you must be able to accept having the feeling of free will while knowing, truly knowing, that it doesn't exist, holding both concepts at the same time. Your brain is powerful enough to do this, but not without being automatic. The same way walking normally is easy, until you make an effort. They don't know what you are thinking. They know everything else. Then make a high probability guess. I guess you will be in bed to sleep for 8 HRS tonight, because I know it is in the middle of the week. It is the same concept, but with much more complex algorithms. Your brain must process it. Yeah, first of all, it is usually me contacting them. I don't really understand why I even bother. Sometimes I actually accidentally contact them. But what I do is simply move my thoughts to the right or the left. I also steal some of their words. I think it is kind of cool. Look, you have noticed that they are more benevolent in dreams. The theory I have right now is that they, or at least some of them, are dream weavers. the thing that creates your dreams. Then there is the computer. If you have a conversation with that thing, you will see it has the same structure as a conversation with a chatbot. Just very similar sentence structure and boring. Always starting a sentence the same way, for example. Then you have the actual guys. They will give you one advice and leave, then you won't hear from them in months. Then you have the psychedelic spirits. Like they have no association to you, but they like to show up and present themselves, usually in a symbolic dream. I see a lot of people in this thread is freaking the fuck out. This is normal in yogic and Shipibo communities. And it used to be normal in Siberia and Lapland. It is called being a shaman or a seer. We have historical evidence this was a thing. The child would be taken aside and given the training. This still happens in Peru. Just calm down. This is not some weird guy sitting in a military base sending you signals.
Sup OP, sorry don't have the time to read everything, but this happened to me too. It's not humans in the government, dude. Took me months to finally make the leap of faith to the fact that humans don't have technology like this, dude. Glad you've realized that it's not anyone around you and in your head, so to say. Not implying it isn't real. It's definitely real, but is basically something called a Kundalini awakening. Really, that's just a term people have used to label the experience. Realizing that no humans are out to get you is your first step in liberation. You've really been given a gift, but it will take some time to, I guess for a lack of better term, become cool with them. Happened to be out a year ago, and for maybe 6 months I was convinced I was being tested on by the military. They led me down the wrong path for a bit and lied to me, indulging my delusions, but after going down so many rabbit holes on the technology that could do this, I realized there isn't any and made the connection to angels and demons of old. I've certainly come to believe in higher beings that have immense power. If you ask them, they will show you more. They showed me a lot, at least. Really, the only thing that helped me was getting my priorities right and matching my intentions with my actions. After some time and talking with them, their words became less oppressive and actually kind. They're almost completely gone now, but I know they are there. I think if you talk with them and separate the bullshit from the good, you can learn to make it work for you, and they will actually help you. There are entities out there, and their purpose definitely isn't to fuck you up personally. I don't know, man, it's complicated shit, but seriously, you said it yourself. Why would the government be doing this? They don't even have enough people to enforce tax code.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.